Good afternoon, everyone. This is Luigi Pecoraro. It's 12 o'clock straight up. I'm going to give folks a couple more minutes to join us before I get started. So be patient and hang in there. All right, looks like folks are joining us, so we'll give it another minute or so. Welcome, everyone. Okay, we'll get going here. I think we've got critical mass, as I like to say. Again, good afternoon. I'm Dr. Luigi Pecoraro here with SMU Cox School of Business. I'm in the Executive Education Department. I'm the Managing Director. And my role here is to work with organizations to develop custom leadership development programs. And been doing this work for, from an executive education perspective for the last 10 years, but I've been in this training and development space now for over 20 years. So I want to welcome you. And let's look at the agenda for today, if you will. Okay. So I'm just going to give you a quick overview of who we are, if you're not familiar with us, the School of Business and our Executive Education Department. Then I'm going to share with you an integrated leadership development model that we use here at our organization. And then we'll get into the key components of the model, which I'm going to break out and go into more detail on. Then I'll share a couple of key contacts with you that you can have as a resource, and I'll take some Q&A at the end. All right, one of the things I do want to set as an expectation up front here, though, before we jump in, is that what I'm not going to do today is get into selecting high potentials. So as an organization, we partner with companies that typically falls on the organization to determine and select who their high potentials are going to be. They each have their own unique process for doing that. So we don't typically get involved with that piece of it. I'm going to focus on, once those folks are selected, how we work with the organization to determine, what the right type of program will be to work with those high potentials. Okay. All right. So first of all, SMU Cox School of Business. If you're not familiar with us, we've been around for 100 years. That's pretty amazing. We have been a part of this business community that long. We have proven instructors, true and tested content. We are committed to leadership development. It's one of our core values. We work with companies and individuals for both internships and experiential exercises, and bring value to them in that way. Our difference is that we train business leaders. We incorporate techniques of adult learning, which include active participation, sharing experiences, various learning methods, and instructor credibility, humility, and respect. And executive education, we specifically use expert engaging faculty or leaders in their fields. We're not restricted to using just our SMU faculty. We have affiliate faculty that we can bring in who are experts in their area. And so they're using relevant content based on the latest research. And we share innovative tools that you can put to work right away. We facilitate collaboration and networking with diverse colleagues, even in this virtual atmosphere. And we create a safe and challenging learning environment to think and test new ideas. All right, so here's our leadership development model that I want to share with you today. It's a way to create an integrated learning experience. And I've been using this model over the last 10 years. No, don't do that to me. Go back. Okay. Sometimes the PowerPoint gets jumpy. It likes to jump on its own. I don't know why that is, but we'll deal with that. So this model integrates a comprehensive learning experience for high potentials. And I'm going to break this down, but it really starts with executive sponsorship and participation. We work with the organization to facilitate that. That's not solely up to the organization. They certainly have a role to play in that. And so do we. And I'm going to talk about the role we play in that as well as the organization. It's really critical that they play a role in any program for high potentials. And then, of course, this contributes, all this is part of a program design that we have to put together. And then with the program design, there's often program pre-work, of course. And then we'll do typically a 360 behavioral assessment with that program. This allows us a chance to create a baseline of the leader. That will typically be given to a coach. They'll give coaching for personalized development. They'll create an individualized learning plan. The modules of learning will include mixed modality learning experiences. There'll be an action learning project, and there'll be reflective exercises throughout the program for the learner. The thing that holds us all together is that we are being learner-centered. We are focused on giving the learner a practical experience that they can utilize immediately. So let's break this down. Let's look at the different components and see how this plays out. First of all, let's start at the higher level here with program design. The first thing is we have to have clear business goals and learning outcomes that shape the design. And so we'll look at the organization's, perhaps their strategic plan, maybe it's a specific business goal they've come to us with that they want to accomplish. And we'll look at what learning outcomes would help them achieve that business goal. So for example, one of my clients a few years back really wanted to increase their capacity for innovation in their organization. So we looked at what we could do to build out that capacity for innovation in their organization. And we incorporated various modules that would do that in the learning design, very specifically giving them skill sets and learning experiences where they could then implement innovative exercises and skill sets in their organization to implement more innovative strategies and tactics in their organization. So we really need to tie whatever we do to a business goal. Now, the learning modules we create, typically we recommend that these learning modules be spread over time. So maybe a couple days a month then we do it maybe every other month. We want to give people a chance to practice whatever they learn in the module. When we were doing live programs, that might be say 2 days in a given month and then 2 days 2 months from now. Now with things being very virtual, we're breaking that down even more, maybe into a 2 to 4 hour module twice a week, and then repeating it maybe a month later. So we want what we call space repetition. We want some time in between modules. People, we don't want to have too much content condensed too closely together. So we want to be aware of that in terms of what people can absorb and giving people a chance to apply their learning. One of the keys in the program design, particularly as you might have different experts and different topics that may overlap just a little bit, is the key is to coordinate faculty to prevent redundancies in their teaching. And so it's just one of the tips and one of the things that happens behind the scene in putting a good program together is gathering that faculty and having them share what they're doing and making sure that they know what the other's teaching and that they don't repeat each other. Of course, the design will include the integrated learning model components, which we're going to explore here in a minute. One of the keys that I have found over the years is really that this design, overall design of a program, needs to be co-created with various stakeholders. So that would mean, for example, the executive sponsorship. That would mean the learners themselves through assessment. That would mean for us, the learning and design team. It could be HR business partners. So the various people in the organization that have a stake in this outcome of this learning. And then it's the iterative process of testing design ideas. It's not the first thing you come up with. You have to really play it out. Share it with others, get their feedback, and really test whether this is the right design for your goals. And we'll look at some, I'm not going to get into the way nitty-gritty of various sample designs that we've done, but I will share with you some hot topics that people are looking for in their designs these days. All right, so the first component is that programs need to be learner-centered. That's at the heart of the model. And so that means assessing needs. And so we'll typically have, organizations will typically do this themselves. We can help them do this. Perhaps that's through interviewing the stakeholders or using an electronic assessment, or it could be through the use of the 360 itself. That could be the way that the assessment is done. It's typically competency-based. Looking at, people have various assessments they like to utilize. But we're going to look for where the gaps are in the leadership skill sets that this particular group, specific group has. So again, we want to make sure that it isn't just thinking up ourselves what they might need, but looking at what they actually need. And this will contribute to the individualized learning plans that the leaders will get and ultimately work on. And so this contributes to practical skill development and application that folks hunger for. Again, it's not guessing at what folks are going to need. Faculty are outcomes focused for the learner. They come prepared to make sure that people are going to be able to have very specific takeaways. And the content must be current, must be relevant, must be practical and applicable. That's what learners want. That's what we must give them. And the learner's experience matters. They come to these programs with experience that they need to build on, they need to develop further. And so we want to bring that experience into play. We don't want to pretend that they have no idea what we're talking about or that they don't have anything to build on. So these are key components of being learner-centered. There are others, but the focus must be on the learner throughout the design, throughout the program, throughout the whole process. All right, executive sponsorship and participation. So perhaps it's trite, perhaps it's common sense, but it's not always common practice. It's commitment from the executive suite to develop high potentials. Sometimes this is something that must be solicited. Other times it's inherent in organizations that they have that commitment. But that commitment could just be tacit, meaning they allow it. I'm suggesting more active participation and more active commitment is what we want. And I have some examples here. And so it's not just allowing it to happen. I'd like them to participate in specific ways with the program. So number one is to provide the necessary resources to execute a plan and a program, which means not only the personnel, but the resources, meaning perhaps external resources, faculty, partnerships, materials, whatever it might mean to enhance the experience. Personnel, of course, is a key one. But the most vital piece of this is to actively participate in the program itself. There are a number of ways that they can do this, and we always want to invite them to do it. They could co-teach or teach a piece of the material. When it comes to, for example, something with financial acumen, it's always nice to have the CFO give their perspective on the current financial state of the organization. Mentoring. Throughout the program, they might meet with one of the high potentials on several occasions to offer their mentorship. They could visit the program from time to time. Often these programs have social gatherings, and we always invite them to attend those social gatherings and visit with the high potentials. It's always a high point for the high potentials to meet with the executives during the program. And then one of the other interesting ways, we're going to talk about action learning projects that the participants will do, is that they can really help shape the action learning projects. There are things that they would like to see tackled in their organization that sometimes aren't being addressed, problems or opportunities that they'd like to see explored. And it's very important that they help shape that endeavor. So these are just, again, a few of the ways that we can get both sponsorship and participation. There are additional ways, but I just want to highlight these ways to further engage the executives of your organization. So with a design set and laid out and communicated to your learners, once everything's set, we like to communicate out to those high potentials several months in advance what's coming and why it's coming and what's going to happen. And so we'll begin to send out to them via website, if you will, that they can log into some articles, maybe a case study, some video clips to prepare them for the upcoming module. They might even have to read a book if it's particularly relevant. We might have them fill out a questionnaire to get to know them better. Maybe some things that we want to know specifically about them that will help us to tailor the materials for the upcoming program. We might have them conduct an interview of a profiling a particular leader or something like that, so that they're already learning before they come into the room. And we might have some reflection exercise, say a value exercise or something like that. So we get them going even before they show up for a program to begin their learning ahead of the actual live sessions. All right, the 360 behavioral assessment, this is probably something you're all familiar with. We don't prescribe any particular one. We often work with the organization to utilize the one that they're either most familiar with or most utilize. If they're not using a particular 360 behavioral assessment, we often recommend the 5 practices one. It's a very simple one to begin with if you haven't used one. 30 behaviors broken out into 5 categories, 6 behaviors per category by Poses and Kuzner. So it's a very easy one to start off with, again, if you haven't used one before. The idea, of course, with behavioral assessments is to establish a baseline of current effectiveness and get that feedback from a variety of perspectives, from subordinates, peers, customers, suppliers, managers, other inputs from people above you in your organization. And with this, of course, we can identify developmental opportunities. And most importantly, it allows for a post-assessment for identifying measurable change. This is key to showing return on your investment in this training and development, is to show behavior change, is to show that people have, in fact, learned and changed by developing certain behaviors over time. And so this becomes a critical component to establish effectiveness, if you will. Again, not partial to any. There's a bunch out there, Leadership Circle, of course, Lominger assessments, very popular. There's the emotional intelligence, Hey Group 360, a variety of ones that people have utilized and are good. The Hogan's a popular one as well. That's even more encompassing than a competency-based assessment. Anyway, these are vital to providing important feedback to leaders. This, of course, we always look to include coaching. This allows for personalized development. That 360 is going to be a key piece of that coaching relationship and experience. We recommend 6 sessions for the best impact in a program. This allows enough time to get enough depth with the coaching for some movement in the development process. Of course, the coach will debrief the 360 assessment and help identify those opportunities for development with the coachee. They help to create an accountability plan with the coachee. That's very, very important through this process. And they can offer perspective and insight for growth and development. It's been my experience when we evaluate programs that the most impactful feedback we get from the programs and evaluations that we do is that the coaching was the most impactful part of the experience that people share. That's qualitative data typically. I haven't gathered quantitative data on that, but qualitatively that is often where people suggest that they get the most impactful experience, is that coaching experience. So it's something we highly recommend and suggest for a program like this to have good impact. For us, we have, there's different ways that people make those selections. We have coaches in our arsenal. Often companies have a pool of coaches. These days, people are looking for certain certifications, there are different ways to identify who those coaches could be. All right, so why have an individualized development plan? We recommend that be part of the process. It creates focus for growth and development. That's important. People can lose focus very easily. It's specific to each person, of course, and it contains a clear learning plan. That's what we want. We want a very clear learning plan for each individual. And it, more importantly, identifies action steps that are needed to develop a certain skill or competency. People know what to do, when to do it, how to do it, and they can work from there in the time that they have between programs and between coaching sessions. It will help guide the conversation with their coach, and again, it can be used to identify measurable progress. Having this is really vital to the overall growth and development of the leader. They're not very difficult to develop. They take time and attention, and there are guides for this that are available for help, but this is really vital to the process. All right, common sense again today, but not always common practice. In the classroom, in the learning sessions, multimodality learning is the norm, should be the norm these days. It's certainly something that we practice. Of course, we mentioned that people come in with pre-reading. In the class, we debrief cases and stories that people have prepared. We utilize application exercises, group work. One of the things we love to do is simulations. We'll typically try to integrate a simulation, perhaps per module. If we have 3 days, maybe one of the days will be a simulation on change or running a business, so that people are practicing certain skill sets or learning certain skill sets by actually doing something. These are really, they've come of age and are really helpful in learning new skill sets. Demonstration, that could be through the faculty demonstrating certain skill sets. It could be through having individuals demonstrate that skill set in front of the classroom, but showing people how things are actually done is important. There'll be one-on-one interaction between people to learn from each other, individual reflection on concepts that are introduced, and of course, video components. Often seeing behaviors being modeled is an important way to learn. And so, using that mixed modality, multimodality learning in the classroom is really, really important. People have short attention spans. The variety really helps and makes for a better learning experience. All right, so I mentioned I wanted to share some of the hot program topics. We've listened to our clients and to high potential leaders. Oh, there's a jumpy thing. And here's some of the topics that we've heard people are looking for and want. So this notion of being more of a transformative leader, more inspiring, and more of a transformative figure. Emotional and social intelligence continues to be a hot topic. Being more influential, driving results through authentic presence, leadership resilience, leading in a digital age. That's the world we're living in today. Teams are still important, particularly through this distributed nature that we're living in. Decision-making bias, leaders coach. This is fascinating. This has been really a surprise, but it's a very hot topic. We continue to integrate it in our programs. This notion of innovating through human-centered design gets a lot of attention. More and more, the notion of strategic analytics, being able to use big data information to make decisions in organizations, leading effective change. We have a great simulation for that. Strategic management, the idea of leading from the enterprise perspective. And then solving complex problems. That's often what we utilize our action learning projects for in organizations. And then this notion of creating long-term organizational sustainability, in this age of VUCA, if you will. So these are the things we're seeing. I wonder how those match up with what you're seeing in your organizations. Would love to get your comments in the Q&A on that. And so the action learning projects, they're a critical component to achieve ROI for program investment. So what do I mean by that? It's been my experience that with the action learning project, which is effectively a project that the participants either go back and lead a team in their organization with, or gather a team in the, assuming we have a cohort from your own organization, they go back and lead a team of their own and go and look to solve a real organizational issue or identify a real opportunity to expand the business. And it's been my experience that they come back and share that experience with the class, that they have in fact found a way to save enough money or achieve a new opportunity that it's more than worth what they spent on the program. And I'm not making this up. It's been documented. It's been demonstrated time and time again that the energy and activity that's been put into that project has very concrete outcomes. They're working on real world application in the organization. These are things that sometimes organizations have just not been able to get to. And this creates a wonderful opportunity for learning, but also for getting to something that the organization has not been able to get to. So it integrates classroom learning into real world application. It is a team-based activity to demonstrate leadership of others. And typically it's time limited. It's about 6 to 8 weeks. So it can't be something that takes a year-long type endeavor. But it's usually long enough to make an impact. And adequate, again, for documenting some real savings that can be gathered. I remember once with Sherwin-Williams back in Cleveland when I was working with a group, they were able to show a way to save $1 million through some means of redistributing pallets in their organization. Just a simple thing like that. So who knows? You never know. Had another organization that saw an opportunity to use laser etching on their product to create some new opportunities. It's amazing what people can come up with when they work together on new things. So these are vital. And again, the organization has to help identify these, help to work with the project, the program design folks, both internal and external, to see what would be good learning projects, and determine what's best for the learners to tackle. All right. So I just want to mention one opportunity that's coming up here in our organization for you. 2 slides, real quick. We do have a program that we are running here starting in March called Transformational Leadership. It's 10 weeks and touches on some of the topics we just mentioned. It's not a hypo program specifically, but it is for director level and above. Maybe a little sharpening of the saw, if you will. So if you're thinking about someone in your organization, director level and above, who might want to improve their leadership skill and enhance their capacity to understand and implement change, find a positive approach to leading people, learn to implement some strategies from evidence-based research, and create and execute an actionable development plan. Here is the 10 topics that we're going to cover in 10 weeks from 6 to 9 p.m. We're going to do it virtually on Tuesday nights. We have 10 different faculty with expertise in each of these areas. And so it's just a great way to be introduced to these topics if they're new, or refresh or sharpen the saw around these topics. And again, I'll share some contact information, or you can check out our website on this, but it is something that's coming up that could be a good start on the way to a good hypo program as well. But I want to move on to some Q&A here. Well, of course, we'll share the recording and we will share the slide deck. And so you'll have this contact information, myself, of course. And then I want to introduce you to Sherry Moore here. She's a director in our organization. She often gets involved very specifically and directly with any registration or information about the programs that we have available for open enrollment to the public. She can answer programs or information about custom programs like I do, where you might want to engage us to create something for you and your organization. All right, so I wanted to open it up to go. There should have been a slide there for Q&A, but I guess there isn't one specifically, so I'll just leave it there in Q&A. Oh, all right, so much for that. Keep bumping off that slide. So let me open it up. You can unmute yourself. You have that capability. Questions about developing high potential leadership development programs, something that maybe I missed and you've added in the past, or a question about one of the components that I've shared that you'd like a little more detail on. Oh, chat. Okay. Hang on. Let me go there. Great, brother. You suggest preparing SMEs working in the biz. Okay, good. Yeah, that's a great one. So how do you suggest preparing SMEs working in the biz to co-facilitate learning sessions? Yeah, so SME subject matter experts. So I gave the example of sometimes we'll co-facilitate a finance class with the CFO. And so it does take some good coordination with the faculty member and that individual to prepare a session and actually plan that session out and have some practice. Really prepare for that session. These folks aren't always presenters or teachers, and so they'll need a little coaching and guidance in order to do that. And our faculty typically, will get involved with that. It does actually make their life more challenging, but they understand that and they're willing to do that. And so it does in fact take a bit of preparation, but we, from our perspective, our faculty are willing to do that to help them along. So great question. So you can drop your question or you can unmute.
Hey, Luigi. Luigi, this is Dania again with
Dania.
Greystar. Thank you again so much for your presentation. Love your programming.
Thank you.
I had a question around the sponsorship and the connectivity to the hard business results we can generate through action learning projects, the ones you alluded to, decrease costs like the $1 million with Sherwin-Williams. How do you think the stakeholders, especially those that are sponsoring at the most senior level, respond to that kind of metric compared to the behavioral metrics you've talked about, like with Kouzes and Posner's, the 360, where you can show a before and after in terms of leadership, behavioral skills and what have you? What's their excitement, energy level around that hard business metric compared, or do they even compare it to the business improvement in business skills and leadership skills?
You know, they love them both. I mean, you know, they'll take any measurement, anything measurable that they can get. My experience has been that they're actually more excited about the financial one, quite frankly. You know, they like to see the behavioral one. That's nice. You know, for the programs that don't always integrate action learning projects, that's all they get are the behavioral ones, and they'll take those. But yeah, when we can integrate the action learning projects, I can think of a $1 billion company that I did that with, and the executive team came to the presentations, and he was blown away by what they were able to do with those action learning projects. And you know, he just came up to me and says, I really can't believe what our folks were able to do in such a short time. You know, it totally exceeded my expectations. I mean, that's what you want. You really want to blow them away.
Thank you for that. That is super helpful, especially it sounds like if the learner can pick that project, something they're already working on or tasked with, but they have that short window, 6 to 8 weeks to really accelerate. And that way you can demonstrate the return. And you're right, if I were a CEO, I would really get excited about that. And I would use words like blown away. I would reinvest in the program if I'm going to get that and the behavioral changes. So
that's right.
That's super helpful.
Yeah, you bet, Dania. Yeah, that's great. Anybody else? Don't be shy. Anybody else doing something interesting out there with their high potential program? Great. Oh, how long is the Transformational Leadership program? 10 weeks. So those are 10 topics. 10 weeks, Tuesday nights, March 2nd to, I guess that's May 5th, maybe, somewhere first week of May. So 10 weeks, 3 hours a night on Tuesdays. Thank you. Okay, some comments, but not questions in chat, no worries. Okay. I can give you all 20 minutes back if you were thinking it was going to be an hour. Oh, yeah. Oh, thank you for that reminder. There is early bird pricing for Transformational Leadership. It's $34.95, but if you sign up until 2 weeks beforehand, it's $32.95. There you go. Thank you for that reminder. All right. Well, thank you all for participating. I hope you walked away with at least one new idea to integrate into your high potential program. And again, we'll share the recording with you and the slides. And great to have you. And good luck with everything. Appreciate your participation. Take care, all.